Hey guys, I am Dani and welcome back to Summer Skye Gardens. So I just got out to the farm and I thought this week's video, it would be maybe super helpful if I showed you guys how to set up drip irrigation. I've seen a lot of people ask questions about it, ask me questions about it. So I'm going to talk you through my setup, give you a few pointers, and talk about where I get my supplies. And hopefully this will help you guys out when you're ready to set up your drip irrigation. As always, if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. Like, comment, subscribe, all the things, and let's get to it. So a couple of things initially about drip irrigation. Why would you want to use drip irrigation? It is probably one of the better ways to water either your garden or your farm that's going to lose like the least amount of water. So what it is you're laying these really thin, hose like strips. It leaks out water over a slow amount of time. So it gives the water enough time to get out, drain into the soil right where the plants are. So you're not losing as much to evaporation or runoff, and you're running it over a longer period of time as it just slowly drips out of the hoses. This is different from like a soaker hose, which are usually a lot thicker, heavier, more expensive, and those put out a larger amount of water over a shorter period of time. And soaker hoses are going to be really good for like large shrubs, trees, bigger plants in your garden. The drip irrigation is really good for smaller plants, vegetables, flowers, just to get water, right where that plant is. Now there's two main places that I've seen most people get drip irrigation supplies from. One is Drip Depot and the other is DripWorks. I myself have used DripWorks, but I've seen products from both and I think they're both great. They both have great customer service. So whichever one you want to look at, I do have a discount code for DripWorks. If you're interested, I will link it below. All right, let's go take a closer look at where my drip irrigation is set up to originate from, and then how it's kind of run through the field. All right, so this system here that's going to half of my production field is hooked up directly to my well. And I would highly advise, if you have a larger area, to use your well or consider putting in a well. It's a big upfront cost, but you're going to save so much money in the long run instead of using like city water. And it's just better for the environment. You're using groundwater from rain runoff and putting it back into your garden. So here you can see this is like a hose bib. And I have a T, or sorry, not a T. I have a Y. Know my letters. So that one half can be a hose. So I can fill up buckets and wash stuff. And then the other is hooked up to my drip line. And this Y I just got at Home Depot, and it has like an on and off switch. So let me zoom you guys closer in and I'll show you this system right here. All right, so let's go through the components of hooking up your drip line to your hose bib. And if you get, I know at least through DripWorks, if you get like a small, medium, or large drip irrigation kit, it will come with all these parts. So that's what I did, and then I just added other parts as needed. I highly recommend that for someone that's new. So it comes with this little hookup valve here, and then right here is where you put your filter, and you can drain it here with this little on or off valve, which you can see there's water coming off, and this is to help filter out, oh, there we go, sand or sediment so it doesn't clog up your lines. My well is old. I have a lot of sand in mine. So you can see here the filter, even though I have a sand trap on my well, I'll probably need to replace my well within 5 years or so, but you can see where it's accumulating some sand. So I will just come through sometimes. Let me wash this out and just kind of rinse it off. You can always buy a new filter if it gets too clogged up. They're super cheap and easy to replace. I've already had to do that a couple of times, but I'll just come through and just kind of try to rinse it out as best I can, like so. And then kind of put it back on. You want to make sure that your filter comes before any of the other components so that you're getting filtration in. So let's screw that back on. So that just screws on and off like so. And then you just have another hookup valve. And then this is a flow regulator. So this helps keep the pressure from being too high out of your valve here, or out of your hose bib. So this flow regulator is going to help slow down the water so it's not rushing through the system and blowing the end caps off your line. And a lot of them will come at about a 12 psi, 16, 18 psi. So when you're looking at the pressure in your line coming out of the hose bib, you want it to be between about 10 to 30 psi. So if that's what it is coming out, you don't need this piece. But if it's like 50 or 60 psi, then it's way too fast and hard, and you're going to want to slow it down and add this piece in after the filter. So the water gets cleaned first, and then it gets slowed down and it runs into your main drip line here. So I have a couple of spots where I use this, and I have a couple of spots where I don't, and you may just have to play with your lines and the pressure and how much water comes out to supply your plants. And then here you can see there's just this end cap here that screws on to the main tubing, which is really thick. One tip I will give you is this stuff, it can be hard to maneuver at first. Let it sit out in the sun for a while. Since it's black, it will heat up and become a lot more pliable. So let's follow this down and I'll show you where it connects out in the field. And here really quickly, I'll show you my well. This is you have the pump here. This is kind of the storage hole. This is the sand trap. And then it comes down here to my drip. So here is the main drip line. There are no holes in that. That is what's going to come from your water source out to your field. So let's look right here at this first row. Sorry, I have a lot of overgrown grass and weeds. So you can see, oh, let me look right here. So this is where you hook up your drip lines that will run out into the field. This main tubing doesn't have holes. So what you do is you come through and you use this little hole puncher. Make sure you position it the right direction. I've definitely punched holes on the wrong side before. You punch a hole and then you cut out some tubing from a larger roll, measure it out down the bed, and you screw on this end cap and just pop it in. This is pretty easy to get in and out, and if you do it correctly, just a hole punch, one pop in, this is not going to leak. Make sure these are nice and tight. And for a 4-foot row, I do 4 lines, and I feel like that has worked pretty well. I have sandy soil, it's hot here, so I need a fair amount of drip irrigation. If you can do more, go for it. But I felt like for me, that works pretty well. So like I said, you're just going to have to play with it as for how many lines you want, how much water is it putting out. And the good thing is you can always come back and add more lines. And there's these little plugs you can get where if you hole punch in a wrong area or you want to close it up, you just put a little plug in there and it will close it up. So you run it down, and I just secure it into the ground with like landscape staples, like so. Punch it down, and then as the lines go out, I've secured them with landscape staples. And one note, vast majority, 99% of the time, you're going to want to put your drip lines under the fabric. Some people say you can use them on top, but you might find that you will get a lot of water runoff and wasted water if that's the case. So best practice is to put them under the fabric so that they're right there at the soil. So let's go down here and I put the drip line under the fabric so that it doesn't get damaged. And we'll go down here to the end and find the end cap, which is right under here. Right. Oh, nope. Hold on. Like I said, I haven't mowed over here. Let me pull it up. So yeah, so this one has an end cap that shuts it off, and you just screw that on the end, and you just cut your piece, this piece long enough as you need it, as well as your drip lines. And if you get the kit, or if you just replace some of the drip lines, it will come on like a large wheelie spool, and I just lay them out and cut them as needed. And make sure you get some extra end caps. Just make sure you get a lot of extra caps in general. So let's get here to the end of the row, and you'll see here are some of my lines popping out. So here's a little end cap. These are the ones I find that are the most likely to come loose. You can see here I've lost one, and it probably got hit by me with the weed whacker, so I need to go replace that little end cap. Make sure you get a lot of these extra ones. But if your water pressure is too high, these are gonna like shoot right off. So that's one way to know. And you want to make sure, especially the first handful of times you're running your drip system, come out and watch this. Make sure it's dripping, make sure you're getting good water flow, and make sure these aren't all popping off. That means your pressure is too high, and you need to go probably put a pressure regulator on it, or just make sure that these are really tightened up. Because I've run it before thinking it was fine, and I've come out here and there's like a giant pool of water where it's just shooting out on the end. All right, here's my second area, and I have them divided up. I have found, like I said, with my sandy soil, especially with having an older well, it's hot, having to use the drip irrigation a lot in the summertime, it works best if I divide it up into smaller areas. So this is 6 50-foot rows. This is 6 50-foot rows. These are separate systems. The one in the back is 5 50-foot rows. And let's follow this system. I have a connection over here. And you can see, same setup. Have a Y, so I can have a hose here, drip, here is the filter, and then a pressure regulator here. All right, now here is like my bulb perennial field. Ignore all the weeds. But in this system, I did not use a pressure regulator. So I have the Y again, valve here, filter valve, and then it goes straight into the main drip line. And that's because the pressure coming out of this valve is a lot lower. And I don't know if it's maybe just further from the well or what, but I just found that I didn't need it. I wasn't having issues with too much pressure. It was more an issue like not getting enough water out in the lines. So I decided not to put a pressure regulator right there. So here in the shed, this is where I keep all the supplies. And if I need to store any of the drip lines, I'll just fold them up and put them up here. I have like my extra supplies in here. I do have a timer I have not hooked up yet. So I need to get that hooked up on one of the beds. Here's some extra little caps. This is how they look, and you put the line here and you just screw it down. Here's the little plugs. If we call them goof plugs, if you make a hole where you don't want one, you can put those on. And then this is the drip line. So it comes in these spools, larger if you're getting like a lot more feet. And you can see here, like right here is a little slot or slit. So that's where the water comes out. And you can get these where it's like every, I think like 6 inches, 8 inches. I do closer together. Like I think this is a 6, maybe an 8 inch actually. just to get more water out. Since I do live in a hotter area, and in the summer definitely tend to need more water. And here's the main line. It usually just comes in a big spool like this, no slits in it. Like I said, it's really thick, so let it sit out in the sun for a while to heat up before you try to use it. Okay, I think that's it. I mean, that's really all I can think of to show you guys with drip irrigation. Honestly, it's pretty simple. Don't be scared or overwhelmed. Hopefully this kind of gave you some easy tips on how to set it up. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I wanted to make one last note on, some people will tell you you don't need drip irrigation. You can just use overhead watering like with a sprinkler system. And I think it's just up to you to trial it out and see what works best for you in your area. Like I said, I live in the South. I'm in South Texas, right north of Houston. It's Zone 9B, super hot summers, typically dry summers, although lately we've had a lot of rain. It's very, very humid here. You can see how sweaty I am just from the humidity and walking around. So I try to keep as much moisture off my plants as possible because they're already prone to powdery mildew because of the humidity. And so I like the drip irrigation giving water to the base of the plant. But I do know other farmers and gardeners that use sprinklers and overhead watering, and it works fine. So maybe try that first before you invest the money in a drip system. But you may find that you're not going to get as much water to the actual plants. It's going to get more on top of the plants. You might have disease or fungal issues, and you might end up wasting a lot of water, which kind of sucks. So like I said, try it out if you are interested in drip irrigation. If you want to use DripWorks, like I said, I have a link down below to give you a little bit of a discount. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make a comment if you have an idea for another video for me, want me to talk about something that you haven't seen yet, and I will see you guys in my next video.